Sir, do you honestly think that there is something special about the individuals?
Leaders have the ability to look at that big picture. You cannot inspire people by sending them memos. It has to be with personal conversation.
Is this leadership inborn or is it actually teachable?
Leadership is actually forged and shaped right from the time we are born.
How easy do you think it is to do business in India?
Ease of doing business is like flowing water. Wherever it's easiest and there is highest ROI, the money will flow there.
What is the status of national security now?
We don't focus on an immediate perimeter security. International boundary में क्या हो रहा है?
Networking करनी है तो MBA कर लो जाके. How much truth is that?
Networking is not just getting phones and numbers, it's actually getting relationships. I think you have to sell a version of yourself that people want to buy. At the end of the day, we blame the system, but who is the system? It's us, it's the individuals in the system. Because in our long life, we will lose a lot. And it's actually the losses that mature us, never the gains.
Sir, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Ravi.
And for the privilege
Come on.
of speaking to you. And let me qualify that. Why the privilege? The privilege is because you are one of the most successful people that I know. And here is your report card, if you will allow me to do that.
Of course, but that means you need to get to know more people.
Yes.
If I'm the only most successful person.
Sir, according to Wikipedia and according to the internet, there are very few people in your league. And again, like I said, tell you why. You have written a book that is famous, read by people. It's a dream. It's a bucket list item. Na? Book honi chahiye aapki. You are famous. Millions of people have seen your talks. You have inspired people. So, वो impact वाला checklist भी cross है. You have worked in the government where you laid the foundations of India's intelligence architecture. In the NATGRID, you were the CEO of NATGRID. You set that thing up. जिसके ऊपर बहुत सारे अब layers बन गए हैं. आप military में थे, where you played some very important pivotal leadership roles. Business में, corporate leadership में, you have reached the pinnacle. You rubbed shoulders with Anand Mahindra, with Adani and Ambani and the tycoons of, the biggest of the biggest people. You, I am sure, are financially also very successful. And so I think all the checklists of conventional wisdom, of conventional success are ticked. Let me try and gauge आपके success में. To what extent, on a scale of 0 to 10, do you think were external factors like luck, other people, etc.? And to what extent was it you?
I'll be honest, this is not humility, I think this is common sense, right? I can sit here and say it was all me and all the listeners, you and me also, dil ke andar wale dil mein, know it's complete humbug. I would say it would be somewhere 50-50. I think life deals us all similar cards, right? Similar cards. And how we play those cards and what is the philosophy we use while playing those cards, A very wise man once told me that when life deals you a bad rummy hand, rummy, those 12 cards, then take out 3 cards from it and play teen patti. So it's also, the cards may be dealt to you and those cards may be bad for that game. But within those 12 cards, there'll definitely be 3 cards that you can pull out and play another game, right? So to a certain extent, I would say definitely 50% is luck. And luck by luck, I don't mean, luck also means finding a right mentor. Luck also means finding an Anand Mahindra who's willing to take a bet on you. Luck also means being in a situation and coming this close to committing something that would have been moral turpitude or that would have been unforgivable, and having someone hold your hand and say, hey, don't do that. That's not something you should be doing. All of it is luck. So I would consider 50% luck, definitely. And 50% or maybe less than that, maybe 60 luck and 40 of how those cards were played. And it's again not something that those cards were played right every time. I think I made a lot of mistakes. And from those mistakes, I learned, okay, next time if these cards come, this is the way to play. So I would qualify this as a lot to do with luck and some to do with how you handle the cards that you come to you. And also how you listen to some of these mentors. How you pay heed to their advice.
So, speaking of teen patti, 3 cards. 3 cards that you have been dealt with, that you have played with. Business, government, and the armed forces.
Yeah.
Very few people have been In all three places.
In
You've
all
been
three,
in
yeah,
all three.
that's right. I know many people who have been to, there are a
Yeah.
lot of army, I mean, you yourself have left the government, come out into the corporate
Yeah,
sector.
two.
Two, yeah, but three, I was very, very lucky.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I just wanted to let you know, for all of my audience, for all the students, for anybody who's preparing for exams, for anybody who's doing anything academic, मैंने जो कुछ भी लाइफ में सीखा है, जितने भी ट्रिक्स सीखी हैं, जितने भी कॉग्निटिव साइंस और साइकोलॉजी ने मुझे सिखाया है, I will put all of those insights into an email, a series of emails, and I will send you those emails to help you along your preparation journey. To get access to this, all you have to do is sign up. The entire thing is free. I will continue to support and help, and I hope that it leads to tremendous success, tremendous value for you. Thank you very much. All the best. I'll see you there. Like I mentioned, the link for joining this community, the Syllabus of Life community, is in the description. It is in the pinned comments. All you have to do is start, and I'll take care of the rest. Thank you. But also, you're very uniquely positioned to tell us about how they operate or उसमें actually में हो क्या रहा है. So let us start with the first patti, which is the business or the corporate world. Now, you have rubbed shoulders with the biggest tycoons, like I mentioned, Anand Mahindra. He took a bet on you. And that's where I think you got your break in the corporate
I got
sector.
my break there, yeah.
And the Ambanis and the Adanis and just the biggest possible names that there are. Sir, do you honestly think that there is something special about them, the humans, the individuals? Or do you think that ये 50-50 वाला जो matrix है, उनके केस में भी applicable है?
सबके केस में एप्लीकेबल है लेकिन हाउ दे प्लेस दैट रिमेनिंग 50% इज आई मीन कार्ड्स वर डेल्ट टू एवरी बिजनेसमैन मोर और लेस हंड्रेड्स ऑफ बिजनेसमैन लेट्स से नॉट एवरी बिजनेस हंड्रेड्स ऑफ बिजनेस टाइकून्स एंड मैटर ऑफ फैक्ट while two of those leaders you spoke about were second generation leaders, one of them was first generation,
Yes.
who was not dealt any cards. He printed his own cards, right? So definitely if you look at not just these three, but let's take the leadership of the top, say, 100 entities. They could be anything. They could be a business, they could be whatever. That control group obviously has some traits which have to be common, right? Even if I took the civil services list, and they may come from all provinces and different financial background, which they do, different gender, this, that, different subject lines and all. But when they end up in this list of 1,600, 1,700 after I don't know how many lakhs apply and get in, there has to be something common amongst them. And those common traits I've found across these three domains you spoke about, whether it's the military, the corporate, or the private sector, or the government. Those traits are first principles of leadership and they're the same.
Okay, traits. What are those traits, sir?
Well, first, I think I have noticed in all these leaders I've worked with, and not just these leaders you have named, I've worked with two home ministers, I've worked with 3 home secretaries, I've seen them as a fly on the wall, watching them taking decisions under huge pressure. Sure. Mostly decisions between 2 wrongs. There's not a right or a wrong decision. Those decisions get handled at director level, joint secretary level. When it comes to a secretary or to a CEO, CXO, top level, it's usually a decision between 2 wrongs. Right. And you will have a demography that you will upset no matter what you do. It's like planning a meal for 1,000 people. You will never have a satisfaction index of more than 60%. और नॉन वेज वाला बोलेगा मीट नहीं था, वेज वाला बोलेगा वो नहीं था, but you will get a satisfying score. It will never be a perfect score. So one, I think these leaders have the ability to look at that big picture and to know that to achieve my objective, I am not going to be able to make everyone happy or to make every checklist. I'm not going to be 10 on 10 in popularity. I'm not going to be 10 on 10 in terms of empathy. I will have some hard edges, some soft edges. I think that's a realization that they have.
Okay.
Second, I believe they are extreme people persons.
Extreme.
There is an extreme sense of the amount of time that I have noticed these leaders spend on grooming leaders. Actually, physical time, getting interested in their lives, knowing what is their family background. One of these leaders I've often mentioned, he used to work at remembering names. He had more than 2,000-3,000 leaders with whom we'd be like interacting literally on a daily basis. And for anyone, I mean, for you, me, whatever, एक साथ पलटन में 600 लोग होते हैं, उनका नाम याद करते करते 600-700 लोगों का नाम याद करते करते it takes you 2 to 3 years. Now, in a corporate where there's a churn also happening, people are in different locations, global, to enable a sense of bonding with that individual. And the bonding has to be done on Zoom, it has to be done across continents, across timelines.
It's emotional intelligence 101.
It has to be. There is no way a person can get 50,000, 60,000, 2 lakh people to see the same dream that he or she sees without emotionally connecting with them. You cannot inspire people by sending them memos or PPT presentations. It has to be with personal conversation, that inspiring the guy. These leaders have an ability to take 2 fingers, put it inside your throat, go deep inside and find something and pull it out, which even you didn't know you had. And that's why they have the ability to take a team of fairly average people and make them do extraordinary stuff. I mean, look at Jio's launch. In 5 to 7 years, change the face.
True.
All this, what you're doing right now.
Yes.
This wouldn't have been possible without Jio making internet free. Without mainstreaming the future.
Without mainstreaming the future.
Right? So now to galvanize literally lakhs of people, to lay millions of kilometers of cable, to put up thousands of towers, and to do it against adversity, to do it against a timeline that you have to do it as the last entrant into the market.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You may say anything, okay, money, this, that, but it does require the ability to motivate 50,000 people to pick up a net. Well, you can't pick up a net by yourself. You have to get 50,000 people arranged. You have to time it together. You say, okay, on my count of 1, 2, 3, everyone will lift up. Now, you need that sense of camaraderie, the sense of EQ, the sense of discipline. That on my count of 3, everyone will lift up, and it's lifted up, and in 7 years' time, it becomes one of the number 1 brands. RIL is not in the top 10 brands, but Jio is, right? Now, that ability cannot be done without EQ. And I think they are extremely voracious learners. They are lifelong students.
So that, if I paraphrase, makes 4. First thing, they are able to see the big picture. That means they can zoom out. They understand trends and patterns.
I want to qualify that.
Yes.
Not only are they able to see the big picture, they are able to show the big picture.
Okay.
They are able to communicate to the last man down below that what role he is playing in that big picture.
Voracious. ठीक है. So the first is big picture and the ability to first see it and then to have that vision articulated, communicated so that everybody sees it. Second is closely related, extreme emotional intelligence and an emotional connect with people. The third is a realistic assessment of their weaknesses and their strengths.
I would include that as a second point, that if you are, if you own that person, it's like children,
Yeah.
You have kids, he's good in maths, good in geography, but not good in this, not good in that. You're not trying to make everyone good in maths. You're not trying to make everyone good in geography. You're going to say, okay, this guy who's good in maths, I'm going to leverage him in the finance function, this function, audit function, or whatever. This person who's really bad in maths, but is creative thinker, I'm going to put him in marketing, innovation, or whatever. So it's point 2, that when you know your people down to that level, you are putting the right piece at the right place in the chessboard at the right time.
Got it. And the fourth is voracious learners.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to list?
I think, there are, I'm sure, many other qualities that will come as I think about it. But I think these 4 basic quadrants or the basic pillars, rest everything is a flavor of it.
The interesting thing for me here is that I am wondering if this is replicable. Is this leadership inborn or is it actually teachable?
I believe that virtually, of course, there'll always be one odd gifted person in any field. There's a gifted cricketer, there's a gifted musician, there is a gifted...
What should we call this gift?
This, I wouldn't call gifts. Maybe they are gifted, but you can have maybe 2 people gifted, 3 people gifted. You can't have 100 people gifted. So basic, let's take an organization which by and large India respects and says, okay, the armed forces, they demonstrate leadership definitely at the junior level, which is much more whatever. Now there's no way that the UPSC can identify and locate 1,000 level 5 leaders and put them into the academies. It shows us that if you take well-adjusted 1,000 men and now increasingly women and put them through a training pipeline, from the other end of the pipeline, you will have by and large 1,000 level 5 leaders, which means it's a teachable skill, which means it's not something that a person is born with innately, but it's something that can be taught. And I do believe leadership can be taught.
You believe this?
Of course, 100%. Leadership to me is, otherwise we are in the wrong profession. What are we doing here? Because then it upsets our loco standi. If we believe that it's a leader has to be inborn, then stop schools, stop education, stop mentoring, stop coaching. Because either he has it or he doesn't have it, right? I don't think that's true. I think leadership is actually forged and shaped right from the time we are born, a brother, sister, what happens in our childhood. You've had, I'm sure, a young friend who was in school or college with you, who was running around like a kid, and one day his father died, and that day he suddenly grew up. And that, because he became the, Sardar of the family, the eldest of the family. And the moment that pressure came on his shoulder, bhano ki shadi karni hai, ye, wo, and all, his face changed. He aged overnight. That's leadership. That is situational leadership. When it's been thrust on him, that the entire family's load is now come on him, he cannot be the kid anymore. He can't be running around, goofing around, cutting classes anymore. He suddenly becomes much more focused. He may have to leave education to get a job, may do a night education to be able to do a day job. Where did all this come from? Where did all this intensity, sense of responsibility, ownership come from? Person was exactly the same. Till yesterday, when his father was still there as a father figure, the person was exactly, all the DNA, CNA qualities were same. But one day, when that hand went away from top and he realized that this entire family is now depending on me, there is that switch that happens. It's the same person. Yeah. So definitely leadership cannot be something that you are born with. Maybe some people are born with a very nice voice, but that doesn't mean they don't require training to be able to go to the next level. So I genuinely believe leadership is a teachable skill, and we can really create some amazing leaders if we have a good program. When I say program, I don't mean, a good process whereby they are converted from average, mediocre leaders to exceptional leaders. It can be done.
आपने सर बहुत बड़े बड़े कॉर्पोरेट हाउसेस को एडवाइस किया है, आप करते हैं रिस्क मैनेजमेंट पे एडवाइस, दिस इज योर एरिया ऑफ एक्सपर्टीज, नेशनल सिक्योरिटी से लेकर ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस, बट कैन वी ब्रिंग योर एक्सपर्टीज डाउन टू द लेवल ऑफ द इंडिविजुअल, द रियल पर्सन, द व्यूअर हु इज एक्चुअली लिसनिंग टू दिस, जो कि शायद उम्मीद कर रहा हो कि हम उसको लाइफ में ऐसी कुछ बात बताएं, ऐसी कुछ एडवाइस दें जिससे एक्चुअली में फ़र्क पड़े, वो परस्पेक्टिव जो उसके पास नहीं है. सो सर, माई क्वेश्चन ऑन दैट, क्वेश्चन नंबर 1, IQ, इंटेलिजेंस बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट फैक्टर है लाइफ में. बहुत हद तक इट इज़ जेनेटिकली ओरिएंटेड, और उसके आसपास कुछ एक्सटेनियस सर्कमस्टांसेस हैं जो कि वो चेंज नहीं कर सकता, वो फैमिली चेंज नहीं कर सकता, वो एक्सीडेंट ऑफ बर्थ अपनी जोग्राफी चेंज नहीं कर सकता. वो चाह रहा है कि वो एक ऊपर लेवल पे जाए, जैसा कि आपने कहा एक स्पेक्ट्रम चेंज करे अपना. उसको नहीं समझ में आ रहा सर रिस्क कहाँ लेना है अपने लाइफ में. वॉट इज़ इट दैट ही वॉन्ट्स सम गाइडेंस. हाउ वुड यू स्टार्ट टू एक्सप्लेन द फ्रेमवर्क ऑफ वॉट दैट पर्सन शुड डू, given that that person around 25-30 years old maybe has started a job, maybe hasn't, start कर रहा life में, he doesn't know what he's going to get into, what is waiting for him out there, AI से लेकर national security उसको अभी पता चल रहा है. आपकी क्या एडवाइस होगी सर उसको?
So let me first tackle that question that you asked about IQ or basic intelligence, right? So you're right that basic intelligence is a derivative of genes, it's a derivative of good nutrition you had, a derivative of good ambience that you had, good education, good inputs and all of that, and not everyone is lucky enough to get all of them. Having said that, I do believe a 20-year-old or an 18-year-old for that matter, I would believe around 17-18, जब एक तरीके का सीरियसनेस आ जाता है लाइफ में, जब मालूम है कि कॉलेज का अभी नौटंकी बंद होने वाला है, उसके बाद नौकरी करनी पड़ेगी. I think at that stage, a kid, I call him a kid, but yeah, a young adult can do a lot of things, not only to just improve their intelligence, but to improve their overall capacity. I think the first thing that they have to do, it might sound really cliched, but they have to read a lot.
Read a lot?
Read a lot. And when I say read, I don't mean reading Twitter or reading blog posts. So to my mind, there are 4 kinds of reading. There's one reading which is at Twitter, India जीता, कौन जीता, कितने स्कोर से हुआ, and that's just a piece of information that comes to you and you read that piece of information.
Right, tidbits.
The second is op-ed, kind of a editorial, which we were taught, if you remember, when we were kids, our parents used to insist कि editorial रोज पढ़ा करो and all that. But op-ed by definition is somebody's opinion.
Correct.
Right? And then you have a long format article like a Caravan or a Frontline or whatever, which will take one issue and do about 16-20 pages on it, maybe on millennials, maybe on AI, maybe on depression or whatever. And if you read those 16 pages, not only you have a fair idea, but you also know what more to read and who else to go to find out more. And then you finally have books. Yes. I genuinely believe that these leaders, or rather these youngsters who want to have a more enriched life, should devote a lot of their time to reading books. Because reading books does 4 or 5 different things. The first, it actually creates your cognitive intelligence. Why? So suppose I tell you, I want you to visualize that there is a speedboat that is rushing towards an island. It's dark and dark waters and choppy waters, and these 2 men are standing and the boat is jumping up and down. Now, if I told this story to say 10 people, all the 10 will have different boats. They'll have different 2 people. Now, this is the opening scene of Shutter Island, which is a book by Dennis Lehane. Now, if you read the book, you have to cognitively develop the image in your head.
To visualize the whole thing.
But if you watch the movie, Steven Spielberg has already done it for you, right? True. So the synapses that are firing in your brain are not even 1/100th because you're just passively watching. You're not creating. Yeah. So the first thing reading does it actually exercises, like doing push-ups for the brain. When you do trigonometry in school or calculus in school, the purpose is not for you to use calculus in your life. It is for you to do those push-ups, to try and solve abstract problems, So I think reading is first step cognitive. Okay. The second, it is the fundamental building block to discipline. Especially nowadays.
True.
Because you will have to put your phone aside. You will have to say, I'm not going to get up from here until I finish 30 pages. Yeah. I'm going to take notes. It's an exercise of self-restraint. And self-restraint is fungible. If you can restrain yourself in one area, the muscle of self-restraint builds in all areas.
Very true.
So a kid who is capable of dedicating himself, कि किताब मैं पढ़ के ही उठूंगा, is also the kid who is unlikely to be attracted by somebody. चल सुट्टा मारने चलते हैं. Why don't you try this cigarette? Yeah, it's really nice. I'm macho to do it. Because his willpower muscle is being developed doing a good piece of work which has dual benefit. One, of course, he is reading. Secondly, it's strengthening his willpower muscle.
It reminds me of the marshmallow test.
Exactly. Same thing.
Water
same thing.
mission.
Yeah. How do you?
Self-gratification.
Self-gratification. Of course, that marshmallow test has got a lot of nuances to it, yes. Which is not... it's not as obvious as it seems. Sure. You know the marshmallow test for the listeners, where they ask a child that they put 2 marshmallows in front, and then they ask the child that you can eat one immediately, but if you wait for 10 minutes, then you get the other one. And of course, experiments have proven that children who can delay their gratification do very well in life. The problem of this experiment is it puts the onus of everything on the child. Now, if the child comes from a deprived background where adults have not kept their promises, if it comes from a background where something has been told and it has not happened, and this is a very important aspect when we are dealing with millennials, because I do a lot of these sessions on working with millennials. And usually when you're working with millennials, the people our age, or rather my age, you're much younger, they will often talk about these workforce nowadays. They are entitled, they want instant gratification, they don't have the patience to do this and all of that. And somehow they apply as if all of this is happening because of the kids. And I very often ask these leaders that how many divorces did you have in your family when you were growing up? Today you go to a kindergarten school and you'll see 30-40% of the kids come from broken or breaking families. Now, when a 3, 4, 5-year-old child has seen the 2 pillars of her life break the covenant to each other, then what are you expecting them to have? Long lead patience, and they won't be transactional when you have seen in the closest people in their life being transactional. So I think the first aspect for us to recognize is that it is the environment which shapes, in the marshmallow experiment also, it is not all on the child. It is also on the environment. If the environment has been very, very volatile, if you ever go to an orphanage and you are sitting in an adoption there, when the parents are adopting, the orphanage people will tell the parents that when you take the child home and if you notice that the child steals some food and keeps it, it's okay. Now this indoctrination has happened because of environment. So it's not a stealing kid. He's not a kid, but he knows that if he doesn't keep one chapati for later, he may not get it. Or if he doesn't take one more piece of cake and keep it. So a lot of it is the environment.
Scarcity mindset.
It's a scarcity mindset, and it is a scarcity reality for them. It's not a mindset. It's a scarcity reality, right? Actually, most of India, most of us have grown with a frugal mindset. We come from fairly modest families where the father would come, badi pankha kyun chal raha hai, bijli chal rahi hai, this, that, waste ho raha hai, ye wo. So there is that mindset of frugality which we are ingrained in. And ironically, even when we come into abundance, we still have that mindset of of frugality, right? So the first point I would tell this 18-year-old that you must get into a habit of reading, right? Get into a habit, a diligent habit, that 2 hours every day, 1 hour every day. And look at it this way. आप ग्रेजुएशन करते हो 3 साल के, हर साल में 4 सब्जेक्ट होते हैं, हर सब्जेक्ट की 1 किताब होती है, तो 12 किताब अगर आप पढ़ लोगे तो डिग्री मिल जाएगी आपको. Imagine if you read 1 book a week. You are getting 52, 48, 4 degrees plus 4 more to spare every year. You have to be better than the guy who is not reading.
Sorry, I will actually just add one more point क्योंकि इतनी important बात है जो उनको पता होनी चाहिए. In a world where nobody is paying attention, do you know how easy it is to succeed?
100%, because
If you
all
can
you
now
need
do
to do
this,
is pay attention.
That's it.
If there are a couple of books I would recommend, one is Deep Work, which teaches you how to do deep work.
Right.
And another book called Shallows, which shows you the trap that we are falling into where everything is shallow for us. We want a quick, summary of this. We want, abhi to Gmail mein bhi summary aa gaya. You just have to press the button. Somebody would have poured their heart out. An employee would have told you, ye, wo, all this. So summarize karo, it'll give you in 2 lines. You lose all the...
Chat GPT to summarize.
Now, that's what I'm saying. But you lose all the nuance, all the effort, the spelling mistake the guy made, the place where he repeated a word or he repeated a sentence to stress that point. All of that is lost. All the nuance is lost. So the second aspect, other than reading, I would tell the youngsters is that you must also pay a lot of attention to depth.
The devil is in the details.
Devil and the God also is in details. Not just the devil. The God also sits in the details, right? Third, I think, is young people should do 2 kinds of healthy training. One, of course, the physical health. They have to train. I mean, that is the age when you are sort of building your disciplines. I've usually found that youngsters who get into sports, any form of sports, usually don't abuse their body with cigarettes and alcohol and all of that. Because in a way, the body becomes kind of a temple for them. And if you're interested in weightlifting, you're interested in martial arts, a friend can't really tempt you, chal yaar, cigarette pite hain, let's have a beer tonight or whatever. Nahi yaar, kal subah mere PT mein jana hai, I have to run in the morning and all. There is a check and balance. So that's physical health. The other is also mental vibrance. How mentally vibrant are they? And cynicism, I don't mind a person being cynical. But pessimism should not be brought in the guise of cynicism, right? We know that there are 9 things likely to go wrong before 1 thing goes right. And that's what leaders are meant for. Leaders are not meant when everything is going well. Everything is going well, company is doing well, organization is doing well. Excel sheet will run the organization. It is only when things are not working, when morale is low, orders have been stymied, some other competition has come, they poached your person, you had an accident in the family, some loss of money, someone has betrayed you. That's the time real leadership is called for, because you are in a... So, to my mind, any tragedy that happens, whether it's a loss of something, I think a young leader or a young person should see it as battle inoculation for the future. Because in our long life, you still have a long life ahead of you, we will lose a lot. We will lose a lot. And it's actually the losses that mature us, never the gains. It's the losses that make us softer, more sensitive, more empathetic, never the gains. The gains make us more arrogant, more, I did this. They make us eye specialists. It's the losses which actually bring us much more, make us much more vulnerable. And I think if they follow these 3-4 things, where they're looking after their mental health in terms of vibrance, in terms of making the brain that they have more and more powerful by adding layer after layer after layer of knowledge. And by the way, each book that you read is also cross-pollinating. It's the network effect.
It compounds, yes.
It compounds that effect. So you can do cross-pollination with more building blocks. It's a bit like if you've got a crayon set which is 48 different colors, the nuances of the painting that you will paint will be far richer than if you had just 3 colors, right? Second is, of course, their physical health, mental health, reading, and they should build networks.
So how exactly do you think they should do that?
I think they should do it by cultivating friends, not with a quid pro quo attitude. One, I think all young people should actually have a diverse set of friends. Usually what happens is we become very homogeneous. आप अगर किसी कॉलोनी में ठहरे हो तो कॉलोनी के 4-5 दोस्त आपके चड्डी बड्डी हो गए, एंड दे स्टिक बीइंग योर buddies all throughout. Now, that is by definition a homogeneous group. If you are living in a DDA colony as I lived, then pretty much everyone in that area would be similar financial status, this, that. Okay, they may come from different parts of the country, but more or less the same layer. I think we should go a couple of layers below. We should go a couple of layers higher. And by higher, I don't mean, they should go and attend ये अपना इंडिया हैबिटेट सेंटर में जो डायलॉग्स होते हैं, जो सेशंस होते हैं, बुक रिलीजेस होते हैं, चले जाओ शाम को बैठो वहाँ पे, you'll meet some elderly people, tell them, uncle, I'm a young student, I liked what you said, can I write to you and ask for some advice? I have found it's very, very easy to get mentors. If you go to a person and ask them, and the person gives you a task, and you do the task 10x and come back to him, the guy will take you on resume. Because they're also looking for that fire in the belly kind of people who want to take the legacy that they have created and carry it forward. I actually spoke about it in another podcast, that anybody who tells me, that sir, mentorship, I say, ye 10 kitab padh ke mere paas, they revert back to me. Now, the interesting thing is, when I made the statement in the podcast, I got a lot of people writing to me that give me the list of those 10 books, right? And I have given a list of that 10 books to at least 300 people by now. And maybe 2 have got back to me.
So it's less than 1%.
It's less than 1%. So I would urge these people that your foundation, actually there was a gentleman called Bharat Doshi, he was my CFO, Mr. Bharat Doshi, he's now a member of the RBI. He told me this sentence a long time ago. He said, the big bucks of your life, and obviously he's not talking money per se, but he said big bucks of your life will come in 5 years of your life. At some 5 years of your life. Every day until those 5 years, you have to spend preparing yourself for those 5 years. So I think that is the age when they're preparing their brain, they're preparing their body, they're preparing their networks, they're preparing their relationships to create a very rock solid foundation that they can keep leveraging. It's almost like a trampoline which they can use to jump and keep going 1 orbit, 2 orbit, 3 orbits higher. That's what they should be doing right now. They shouldn't be worrying about national politics, what's happening in China and Germany and what Trump is doing. They shouldn't be forwarding crap like that. I would strongly urge anyone, including myself, that one of the best parameters to see where you are headed is to just calculate the amount of time you're spending on your phone.
On the phone?
On the phone, yeah. When I phone, I mean social media, or wasting time on the phone. Let's put it this way. उसका कारण एक और मैं आपको बताता हूँ. उसका कारण ये है that you might have noticed that it's very, very difficult for us to concentrate nowadays. 3 पेज पढ़ेंगे, उसके बाद एक बार phone check करेंगे. That ability to concentrate is gone. So a very good way to see if our mind is disciplined and has the ability to focus and give it 100% on one task is to see how much time are we able to stay away from our phone. If we cannot stay away, it's almost like a fix that we need. It's almost like a chain smoker who needs
it. Is an addiction.
Of course it's an addiction. And like any addiction, it's a test of will. And like any addiction, it is the environment that will help you. You want to quit drinking, you better go to a place where you cannot get liquor. Because if you're thinking, I'm going to have liquor in my house and I'm going to exercise my willpower not to drink it, then willpower is a muscle. It'll get weak. And when it gets weak, it'll give way. So I think 4 aspects, once again, to reiterate. 1, reading, which also, by the way, improves this discipline. 2nd, their physical and mental health. 3rd is the network that they build. And 4th, their ability to develop this quality of deep work. Where एक बार वो बैठ गया काम के लिए, nothing distracts him until he finishes that piece of work. Very rare quality. Extremely rare quality. If anybody can practice this, they will be head and shoulders and torso above their peers.
Interestingly, it has nothing to do with the IQ.
It actually has.
You're all full of them.
Matter of fact, I'll tell you something. Anybody who follows this has a lot of IQ. Has a lot of IQ. It's like a couple friend of mine whom I know, where the husband once was talking in a public forum and he said, my wife is the smarter one between the 2 of us. So you should always listen to her. And I said this same thing to him. I said, a man who marries a woman smarter than him is not very dumb either. He's a smarter guy.
He's smart.
He's smarter. So it's a bit like that. That anyone who can follow this protocol has to have a high IQ. And he will become not only high IQ, he'll also become high EQ. Because he's learning so many different stories from so many different avenues, his brain is opening up. He is knowing that it's not black, there is an opposite side to it. Diversity is not without its downside. This is not without its black side.
Spectrums. You start to see spectrums.
You start to see the same object from different angles. And that makes you much more empathetic because you know every object has a different angle. Not just the angle that I see it from.
Yes.
You know, many times when I'm in a session or something, I'll ask someone that, okay, who knows this? And nobody knows this. Someone will make a statement, nobody knows this. Or who is afraid of public speaking? Everyone is afraid of, one guy will make a statement. Everyone is, what is he doing? He is superimposing his belief on everyone.
Overgeneralizing.
It's not even generalization. He said, मैं जो बोलता हूँ वही सच है. बाकी जो भी कोई कर रहा है, it is not correct. Because he's not doing what I'm doing.
And one question about point number 3, which is to build networks. 2 questions actually. One, how important is it for Gen Z or the millennials to learn how to market themselves? That's one. Second, when you talk about building networks, people normally say, you know, it's commonly understood and believed, networking करनी है तो MBA कर लो जाके. Yeah. How much truth is that?
Definitely there is. So let me answer the second one first, which is yes, networking करनी है तो MBA कर लो जाके. That is one way of looking at it. Because the person. So what is networking? Networking is creating relationships in ecosystems that are different from your ecosystems. Right. But all of this is totally dependent on how much of stickiness you created with them. You can go and attend a whole 1 year in ISB and go with the same 2 dorm friends and come back with the same 2 dorm friends and be nothing other than you'll have an alumni address, isb.edu karke address hoga. That's about it. But if you're a person who took that time, energy, effort to actually build relations, and building relations means you have to work. You have to help that person. You have to empathize with that person. You have an exam tomorrow morning and someone has lost a close family member. You say, exam gaye bhad mein, main tere saath baithunga aaj raat ko yaar. He'll sacrifice that. This person will remember it. That's developing a network. So it's not just collecting
it's proper investment.
Phone numbers of people and adding them to your WhatsApp group. Yeah. It is actually, and you know, I want to go back to that sentence. At the end of the day, you spoke about that 20-25 people in your eco. That is actually your world. Do you really give a damn what Donald Trump thinks about you? But you will very much give a damn what your wife's, father thinks about you. Right? Because that is something that is your immediate. That is your world. That is your immediate. What your child thinks about you is more important to you than the entire government of Rwanda thinking about you.
Yeah.
Right? So I would again come back to that networking is not just getting phones and numbers. It's actually getting relationships. It is getting people who are interested in your stake and who would like to see you succeed. Getting that blessings, getting that good mojo coming, getting a sense of ownership of a person who says, you know what, Ravi, तेरे को कुछ मैं करता हूँ, तेरा तूने मेरे को बताया था, let me figure out a way to make this happen. That is networking.
Got it. Okay. And the first part of the question actually, how important is it that they learn how to market themselves? And how important is sales? And how does one learn this?
Okay. So I will tell you my answer to this. I think a leader or an individual, you compare him to a torch, right? A torch has got a battery, it's got a bulb, and it's got a reflector. Now, if your focus is on polishing the reflector while the bulb is dim, then the reflector will only reflect the dimness of the bulb. So you actually have to go back to the wattage, change the wattage. If you change the wattage of the bulb, you have to change the battery. And if you change the wattage and the battery, the third step is polishing the reflector. So marketing oneself is first becoming deep. First having read those 100 books. First having an opinion, which is a founded opinion, not a WhatsApp opinion, but a founded opinion which is based on certain facts. When you have reached that point, you will be surprised. Radiation will happen automatically. Matter of fact, I give this as a very good example of what is impact. Impact is you sitting in a flight and from Delhi to Bombay and suddenly realizing that the person sitting on your right is, let's say, for sake of argument, Anand Mahindra. I give this example very often. At the end of that 1 hour flight, how will that dialogue end? What will be the dialogue? Will it be, Mr. Mahindra, asking you, Ravi, I really like this idea. Can you send me a note on this? Or can we look at formalizing this into some sort of a large-scale education program that can be done for the workers or whatever? Or can I ask Anish to get in touch with you? Whatever. This would be it. Or would it be, sir, can I have a selfie with you? Now, if you have to leave an impact on him, it can't be I'm an IRS officer who left and started a podcast. It has to be deeper than that. You have to have an opinion about how you see India's doctrine changing, how it's shaped. You have to have an opinion which will interest a person of his caliber. That is impact. So now, if a young person thinks he will market or she will market herself with a dim bulb and a weak battery by polishing the reflector, then you will only present how dim you are. I think the work that they have to do is the first part which I said, that you first work on your, ज़्यादा time में 1-2 साल लगता है to get that वजन. When you start getting into that habit of reading, disciplining yourself, that tejas starts showing in your persona. You can actually make out, Ravi, I think, you put 2 people in a room, one has read 100 books, has experienced some of these life lessons, the other is reading WhatsApp. From the way they ask questions, from the jokes they laugh at, from the line that they summarize, you can make out who is deep and who is shallow. Now, the shallow person, no matter how much she tries to market herself or he tries to market herself, it will be only shallow marketing. It will be, look, how much I've got Insta, I've got followers, I've got this, I've got... You know what they're doing? They're taking a nail and they're hitting it once here, once here, once here, once here. And I said, but it's not going through. Yeah. They have to keep it in the same spot and hit it 6 times and then it'll go through. So I think that consistency of first working on yourself, getting that caliber in place, and then marketing yourself makes sense. But if you think, I'll first market myself, I'll do that Angrezi dance and this and that, shosha, whatever, I do this, I do that. A lot of youngsters nowadays want to start their professional career in a corporate by developing strategy. They don't know, मतलब एयरपोर्ट में एयरक्राफ्ट लोडिंग कैसे होती है वो नहीं मालूम है. दे नो नथिंग अबाउट द वे, बट करना स्ट्रेटजी है शुरू से. आई थिंक दैट्स सिली. You cannot land into a strategic position. You have to work your way to a strategic position by being tactical, operational, strategic for a certain number of years, for a certain number of marination. So coming back to your question, yes, they must market themselves, but their marketing should be silent marketing. I would say that, I'll give you a trick that I've done from very early stage of my career. Okay? And I am guaranteeing you, if any one of the listeners, youngsters does it, वो मेरे को चिट्ठी लिखेगा within 1 month कि सर क्या ब्रह्मास्त्र दिया मेरे को आपने. In any meeting, you're sitting in the back like that, take copious notes. Who said what was the decision, this, that. As soon as the meeting is over, make it into minutes and send it to the meeting organizer. Not to the senior most guy, to the meeting organizer. I used to do it as a matter of practice. I remember 3rd, 4th time, suddenly I'm being shouted at. Where the hell are you? Waiting for you to start the meeting. Sir, मेरे को बताना. Put him on the bloody list. Yeah. As a very junior leader, I used to be in meetings which were very senior because I just earned my way there by being the note taker and the note keeper. And then somebody said, "What? And I said, sir, you had actually told him to do it last time. Now I'm suddenly the meeting coordinator also. It's as simple as that. So I come back to the word, marketing yourself as selling yourself. I think you have to sell a version of yourself that people want to buy.
Yeah, can I paraphrase that?
Of course.
I think what you are saying is give value. Give value. Give absolute.
Give deep value.
Deep value. Real.
Not promise of value. Not promise of value.
Not promise of value. And obviously that corresponds to what you said earlier. पहले अपना बल्ब अच्छा करो, तब तो जाके वैल्यू निकलेगी.
Correct.
But
रिफ्लेक्टर बाद में देखेंगे. हम लोग क्या करते हैं, रिफ्लेक्टर को पॉलिश करते रहते हैं, कहते हैं कि ये पीपीटी में ऐसा बनाऊंगा, मेरा सीवी ऐसा होगा, सीवी में 4 कलर डाल दूंगा, and I'll have this and I'll have font, I'll change this. These are all cosmetic things.
Right.
They're completely cosmetic things.
Right. Now coming to, sir, something very interesting which I read when I was doing my research. You have spoken about diseases which affect organizations. You have spoken about corporate dysfunctions, and I am sure you are talking about decision making when you say that.
Yeah, decision making,
Inefficiency,
and operations and scaling, so many issues.
Cognitive biases. When it comes to decision making, the most important decisions that an individual takes invariably are emotional.
All decisions that human being takes are emotional. All.
How?
They will justify it later with rationalization.
पोस्ट हॉक रैशनलाइजेशन होती है.
Post facto. Yeah.
बिल्कुल जो होता है वो अंदर ही इंस्टिंक्ट से निकलता है. What can we do? What can we learn to make sure that those decisions are spot on? Can we include frameworks? Can we have some metrics to go along with it? क्या हो सकता है सर आपके एक्सपीरियंस? 3 तरह के डिसीजन का सर सैंपल लेते हैं विद योर परमिशन. एक, who you end up marrying or who you end up spending your life with. 2, what sort of work you end up doing. Very important. And 3, what is your legacy? Legacy वाले को छोड़ देते हैं. Let us take only the first 2. आपका एक प्राइमरी रिलेशनशिप विद योर स्पाउस और योर पार्टनर और आपका करियर. इन दोनों डिसीजंस को ऑप्टिमाइज करने का क्या तरीका है सर?
Honestly, I don't think I'm qualified to speak on these decisions very specifically. But I can give you some general principles that work. First is an acknowledgement, a real acknowledgement that close to 99.9% of the decisions we take are emotional decisions. Of course, there's no such thing as heart. That decision is also coming from the brain only. Heart doesn't take any decision. But it's that emotional side. It's not the rational side. It's the limbic brain, the emotional part of the brain, which is touch, feel. This coffee would taste very, very different if the cup was heavier. It would taste very, very different had it been packaged in a way, even costing more, right? So that's got nothing to do with the taste. It's got nothing. It's the general feel that I've got. How do I experience that entire? Does it feel a certain? Is this? It's everything. It's a combination which happens. Now, one of the things that we should do, these 2 decisions actually are completely 2 different categories. One of them is highly, well, I won't say irreversible, but highly expensive to reverse. And I don't mean expensive just from the money side, but from the trauma side. And if you have babies, then, it's... And the other side to it also, that if it is a bad decision, the rest of your life is like hell or near hell.
Fastest way to hell is this.
Yeah. Well, now, my point is that you should look at certain decisions in a way of its implication. That what will be the implication of this decision?
Okay.
Can you reverse this decision? Job is not a problem.
It's a good,
it's a good
framework.
Matter of fact, job to मैं बोलता भी हूँ. I know of some people. I know of a person who joined an organization that I was working for. And he had this whole starry-eyed dreams when he joined the organization. In 2 years' time, he was totally disgusted. And he was 2 साल में छोड़ के चला गया. तो जब जा रहा था मेरे से मिला सर मेरे 2 साल बर्बाद हो गए. ऐसे बर्बाद नहीं हुए हैं क्योंकि had you not done this throughout you would have been thinking what if I had taken that offer, what if I had taken that offer. So it's good that you went down the wrong path, realized it was the wrong path and came back. वो chapter close हो गया ना. So that decision of a different kind, those decisions you can experiment with. Those decisions you should actually experiment with. You should go out on a limb and see because it's reversible.
Reversible decisions है या नहीं तो भाई पहला सवाल पूछना चाहिए. Reversible है या नहीं?
First is it reversible or near irreversible?
Okay.
Second is when I will change this decision, will it impact other people negatively? Marriage is also a reversible decision, but will impact a lot of people negatively.
सर वो तो होगा ही
inevitably,
कहीं ना कहीं तो.
Yeah, job is not. A job, you know so many friends of yours, well, you're an example, who cleared the civil services, went ahead, did it 12 years, and then realized it's not a mistake. You realized, okay, fine, I did it for this time, now I want to do something else. And there's so many of your classmates, course-mates and all that who will continue, बड़ी secretary ambassador लेके जाएगा grave के अंदर, इस committee में बैठ, उस committee में बैठ, whatever. Now, he has decided or she has decided to have that longitude. You have decided to take something and realize that this is not working out for me. But these are decisions which don't have any earth-shattering impact on anyone. You're still running a house, you're still everything is fine, and yes,
so it all works out.
It works out. But some decisions are not like that. Okay. Some decisions are you take a decision and then even if you reverse it, you will cause a lot of damage. So first, I think is dividing it into 2 and then taking a cold. Some decisions you have to leave time. You should not take a decision in a hurry. You should, as they say, sleep over it. Or at times you should assume that you took the decision and the decision went wrong. So there's a nice word which is the opposite of post-mortem. It's called pre-mortem. So before the death happens, you assume the death has happened. And what would be the implication of that, right? Also sometimes it will be very good if you can do, I'm sure you play chess, but do second order and third order of thinking. So very often we think if I move like this, Ravi will move like that.
Right.
And then I will move like this, and then Ravi will do that. And then I will do this, and then Ravi will do that. But Ravi may do something else in the first one. Right? So my entire gameplay now goes down the drain.
इस पे सर एक मेरा ओपिनियन है कमिंग फ्रॉम अ साइकोलॉजी बैकग्राउंड एंड ऑफ कोर्स यू आर वेरी वेल वर्स्ड विद ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल साइकोलॉजी देयर आर सम नंबर्स दैट आर कंस्पिक्यूअस बाय देयर एब्सेंस which I don't think your homework is complete if you don't know those numbers. आज की डेट में there are some psychometric tests which are powerful enough to have some predictions of some life outcomes. Big
Of
Five.
compatibility, yes.
Big Five है सर जैसे.
Compatibility, yes.
कंपैटिबिलिटी पे बताता है, वर्क एनवायरनमेंट पे अच्छी प्रेडिक्टेबिलिटी है, रिलायबिलिटी है, पता चल जाएगा. एक 50 क्वेश्चन का टेस्ट है, उसका स्कोर से पता चल जाएगा कि कहाँ पर फिट बैठोगे, कहाँ फिट नहीं बैठोगे.
So इसमें दो तीन बातें हैं. Of course, I fully agree with the broad general principle of what you said. No doubt about it. I mean, then we can even go to astrology and say कि horoscope से पता लगेगा. Whatever. I mean, whatever instrument. I'm not talking about purely esoteric instruments, but even hard psychological instruments. And you are aware that a lot of these instruments are actually designed for the white American male. They are not designed. Most of these instruments that are being run by the big five, they are not designed for an Indian ecosystem. They are designed for a Western ecosystem. And a Western ecosystem always lauds a single hero. You look at any Hollywood film, any Western movie, it will always be the hero who will do by himself. And that's a very American DNA because that's how the country originated. The country originated with explorers and mavericks and in many cases criminals.
It's an individualistic culture.
Very individual because that's how the country was shaped. But if you look at the East, we have a very communal culture. Community culture, that's the correct word. Community culture. Why? Because you can't grow rice on yourself. Yeah? अगर आपने चावल उगाना है केरला में तो आप नहीं बोलते मेरे 10 एकड़ है मैं अपना उगाऊंगा. You can't. You have to flood the whole field over there. People have to work together. They have to plant together. They'll harvest together, and they will divide the grains pro rata. Collective. So it's a collective DNA for us. I mean, in the US, it's a very common thing that you would hear in the West that after finishing 12th class, the kid wants to take a gap year to discover himself. यहाँ बोल के देखो कैसा चांटा पड़ेगा. डिस्कवरी होता है, my son, his brother, so and so sister. So there's no need to discover because you are a part of a grid, right? So to a certain extent, those decisions that you were talking about, they're also influenced by a lot of ecosystem. Those tests are influenced by a lot of ecosystem. But I fully agree with you that there is and by the way, corporates are doing it. They're not just doing it at selection level. They're also doing it at team building levels. They're saying in a team of 5, you should have one guy who's a maverick, one person who's like this, so that there is diversity in a team. It happens all the time in special forces teams. Special forces teams are organized in such a way that there'll be language specialist in it, there'll be someone who's a paramedic, there'll be a weapons specialist in it, there'll be explosive specialist in it, a navigator, and they will have dual skills so that they can provide redundancy. So you carefully craft a team, and then you also look at the psychological aspects of that team. I remember a long time ago, we had an instructor in the academy, and the orders were being given, and one of the person was giving, okay, Santri duty mein I'll put, he named me and named another coursemate of mine, and our instructor said that you should know your troops really well. And he told that guy, he said, if you put these two guys in guard duty, by the time you come back, they would have shot each other. And if you don't know that chemistry between them, then you're not even placing. You may be both talented people, but they have a chemistry between them, right? And that chemistry also has to be factored. So some of these instruments definitely do tell that. But we both know, you're a clinical psychologist, and we both know that these instruments are not P&L sheets, they are balance sheets. They tell you about the state of mind on that day when you're giving the exam, on that day when you're doing the test. And on that day, if there is a huge influence on the positive side or negative side, it will reflect in the test. So yes, if you are administering a battery of tests, matter of fact, many good companies, they never hire a person with 1 or 2 interviews. They will do an interview in a different setting. They'll call the person for dinner. They'll call the person with a junior. They'll ask the junior to give the feedback of how did he interact with you when he was coming up into the building, what was his demeanor. They will do a fairly 360 degree before they take the person. I mean, before they craft the team, before they construct the team. So yeah, these instruments are very powerful, and I'm kind of happy that now these instruments are being used in a more analytical way rather than that gut feel which used to happen. I like this guy, he seems to be a good guy. A lot of which was, he looks a lot like me.
Yes.
He thinks a lot like me.
Biases.
Yeah, totally. So if you look like me, think like me, walk like me, then you have to be a good guy.
Sir, I suppose that brings me to the end of my questions. I think, safe to say, that we covered much of this system level thinking that you mentioned, because we went from the level of the government to the corporate to the armed forces side. You talked about national security, and then down to the level of individual.
Yes.
Which for me, I think, is the most important,
Of course,
impactful part. because-
individuals make up the system. No?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we blame the system, but who is the system? It's us. It's
Yes.
the individuals.
Yes.
The system. Yeah.
And it was for me, I think, a challenge that I had given to myself to get somebody like you who has had that exposure at that elite level, and to extract insights which the individual watching this can use. And to whatever extent I have been able to do that, I think I'll be happy with the outcome if it actually benefits people, and I'm sure it does. But it, for sure, number one, has given me a few frameworks. You have highlighted and you have numbered a number of your suggestions, which is great. You have left me inspired, and also you have displayed not only the metrics of your success, which we started off with, but the level of humility that you have.
Well, Ravi, firstly, thanks a ton. I mean, it's almost, I'm blushing what you say. But honestly, I think what you are doing, and I'm not, because you said I'm countering it or whatever, India doesn't have the luxury of producing engineers in 4 years, 5 years. वो नहीं है अभी. But we need people who are able to learn quickly, who are able to learn from experience of others. And putting together a repository like this, and I genuinely believe it, we don't have the time. Our youngsters don't have the time कि वो 7 साल का medical करेंगे, 5 साल का engineering करेंगे, 2 साल का MBA, फिर masters करेंगे. We'll have to hit the ground running.
True.
And I always say this, अभी आप Indian Army में वो anti-aircraft missile जो training होता है, इगला missile है जो भी firing का हो, that training continues for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 2 months, 3 months. Housewives in Ukraine are firing it after 24 hours of training, right? So we are in that situation right now that a lot of our youngsters will have to hit the ground running, will have to earn a livelihood as soon as possible, and yet will have to keep educating themselves.
Yes.
And I think the platform you are providing them is the only platform they can do it, because they can't enroll into a formal college, they can't enroll and lose the opportunity cost in many cases of daily livelihood for which the family is depending. And I was just reading about your reach and
Sir,
touching lives. I'm happy to be one of the episodes in that, in that journey.
I was just going to say that the platform is only as good as the people who come on it. And I mean, if I can get the best, and you are the best, then I think the purpose is solved and the platform is justified. There is not enough time for me to wait for part 2 for this. For now, I push this one out. I'll request the audience to let us know their comments and what questions they think I should ask you for the next time, because there will be a next time.
I hope
With
so.
your permission.
I hope so. I'll be very keen to come back and meet you again and do another one with you.
A great privilege
Thanks
and a great
lot.
honor.
Thank
Sir.
you.
Thank you
very
so much.
Thank you.